suspension. I done brought my gang with me. Fresh out the freezer, my eyes dripping. Money coming in my life different.
So let's talk about trading for a second.
Okay. So instead of trading the cryptocurrencies, you're trading in and out of the projects built on top of the cryptocurrencies.
Exactly. So if somebody, and if you go, do you have a BitTrue account?
A BitTrue, yeah.
Yeah, I kind of figured. So if you actually go on BitTrue and you go on the, if you go on the XRP listed assets, you can see some assets that are listed on the XRP ledger. And I'm pretty sure Binance has some too, but the biggest thing, and yeah, people don't talk about this. So let's see if I could pull this up real quick, just to pull an example. So yeah, so a lot of people seem to think when they trade, they want to trade from XRP or trade from Bitcoin to dollars, XRP to dollars, or whatever. But there's a whole nother realm of, and this is assuming that you want to go the trading route anyway. If you were going to trade, there's a whole nother realm of trading that's not happening. That is just a huge opportunity spot. And the reason why it is a huge opportunity spot is because there's a huge lack of liquidity. So let's take a look at, here we go. I'm taking a look at a coin right now, CSC XRPL, which is CSC coin that's issued on Ledger. So if you could take a look at this too, if you look at, or maybe I can share my screen. So I can do that real quick. Oh shoot, it won't let me share. It's all right though. But I'll just explain the concept real quick because yeah, not only can you trade on these platforms, this doesn't go just for XRP. This goes for XRP, XLM, and Algorand, and XDC. But the reason why Algorand and XDC, the opportunities aren't there as much is because they're not liquidity tokens like XRP and XLM. So the reason why liquidity tokens are important are liquidity tokens are going to be passed around almost like how typical money would be passed around, while smart contract platforms will basically be not quite hodled, but they'll hold on to it to use the technology to run their smart contracts. You see what I mean? So they're not typically going to be making payments with XDC unless they're making payments to another smart contract on the Corda platform in XDC. You see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So if you look at some of the assets on the XRP ledger, oh, actually that reminds me. While I'm taking a look at this too, I'm going to send you a link to what's known as the XRP toolkit, and you can take a look directly at the XRP decentralized exchange for yourself.
Okay.
But basically, from a trading standpoint, the volatility, and actually, I'm dropping it in the chat for you. There you go.
Okay.
The volatility with some of these underlying assets on some of these networks, including XRP and XLM, is so wide that you end up getting a 2 to 5% swing on the 15-minute solely because the trading volume's so low. So what does that mean for opportunities? Well, that means, and it's a little bit meticulous, but it's in my opinion, it's the best strategy I've really had. So what ends up happening is, and this is sort of it's not financial advice, but if you want to try this, go ahead, because I think this is a good strategy.
Yep.
Kind of sounds like financial advice, but the advice is don't lose your own money at my advice. Don't make money. Not that you're not going to make money, but I'm not saying you're going to make money. I'm saying that you're most likely going to lose money, but
if you don't
only for legal purposes.
Yeah. So practice with small amounts before.
Yeah, very much practice with small amounts. But basically what ends up happening is if you go into and actually if you click on the XRP toolkit, you can take a look at here too.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to do this with XRP. So part of the reason why the opportunity is here is because of how fast and how efficient XRP is. So here's basically the lowdown for this strategy. I call it the basic liquidity algorithm. And actually I have a piece of code that executes this, but you can actually do this by hand if you really wanted to. It's really not a 10-step process, but there are 10 small parts to it.
Okay.
But what you end up doing is you go to an illiquid market, presumably on the XRP ledger. And the reason why this only works on XRP. You may be going, well, why wouldn't I do this on Robinhood or on E-Trade or on Coinbase? This only works with XRP. It only works because XRP can do transactions for so cheap that you can make. So, and I'm pretty sure you're familiar with every XRP is made up of 1 million drops and every transaction is 12 drops. Yeah. Well, if every transaction is 12 drops, including an exchange on the XRP exchange, if it cost me 12 drops to do an exchange, but I made 100,000 drops, well, I may have made only 1/10 of an XRP, but I got that guaranteed profit. Now, it doesn't matter about how little of a profit margin that is. What matters is how many trades are being made at that profit margin. That's why I have a bot that does this automatically.
Whoa.
But what you end up doing is you end up placing trades on both sides of the trade. And it sounds kind of silly because you go, wait, what do you mean on both sides? And it's kind of this weird thing where you take things out of dollars. But and actually, before I even get too into this, one of the biggest things, and I'll kind of get into this here, I actually don't value anything in dollars anymore. I either value it in XRP or I value it in gold. I actually believe the entire dollar system is how should I put it? A
Ponzi scheme.
It's worse than that. It's almost like a bank structured scheme to enrich the people that manage the money while impoverishing the people that use the money. It's almost like this, right? The banks tell you to put your money in the bank and save it, but you put your money in the bank for them to buy assets, for them to get rich off of, just for your money to lose its value, so they can pay you back with cheaper dollars. See what I mean? You don't want to necessarily call it exactly a scam. It's one of those, you get the shortest end of the stick. And yeah, not to mention, if the system fails, you lose your money too, even though they make all the profits. So it's like it is a lose-lose type of situation, in my opinion. And it's funny too, if you actually look at things being priced in dollars, you look at the stock market priced in dollars, you look at properties priced in dollars, it makes you really think, wow, if I was a banker and I was pricing my assets in dollars or pricing my assets in gold, and I didn't use dollars at all, like, it's one of those things where if you bought a house in 1980 and you sold that same house in 2005, but you sold it in gold, you would get the same amount of gold back as you did in the 80s. But if you bought it and sold it in dollars, you would have to pay over $200,000 more in dollars in 2002 than you would in the 1980s, even though it would have been the same amount of gold. And and that's the thing, I'm not a gold guy. I'm not here to go, oh, everybody better get in gold. That's the only real money. Yeah. I'm not a gold guy. Yeah. But I do understand the functional utility of a financial instrument that can measure wealth, and gold does that really well. And but just as a notice, I typically don't like to value things in dollars, mostly because I think the whole system's rigged, and it's almost like a skewed system where the value that you see now is only valuable the second you see it, because the second you see it again, it's less valuable. It's just harder to comprehend because it's losing its value so slowly. And it's a problem if you want to try to do long-term planning. Like, that's where people try to do the whole beating inflation thing, but it almost seems like if you just invest in assets and they move any amount, you've already beat inflation. Yeah. So, but the biggest thing with oh crap, I almost forgot what I was saying before I went on the spiel about freaking gold and financial utility.
You were talking about the trading in and out of illiquids.
Oh, yes. You're right. So, so the only reason this can work on XRP is because XRP is so fast and so cheap. So any other exchange, even a cheap exchange, may charge 0.5% per transaction. So it means you've got to make a minimum amount to be able to profit on that. But with XRP, if you're telling me it cost me 12 drops, which is literally like 4/100ths of a cent. If you're telling me it cost me 4 drops to do a transaction, and it's 4/100ths of a cent,
then you only need to make that 0.5%. Or less.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. I just need to make more than those 12 drops, and it's so infinitesimally small that you start seeing huge opportunities in really, really small trading bands and really, really small volatility. So what you do is, since every transaction is so unquantifiably small that every trade you make, no matter how thin of a margin, will net you a profit because of how cheap the transactions are. So let's say you went in and you found, oh, actually, I got a good one. There's a few of these that we can take a look at. And I would actually recommend, if you download the XM app, XUMM, you could also take a look at the XRP decentralized exchange on top of being able to issue your own tokens and such. And
is it that easy? You just you click a few buttons and upload your token, or?
Yeah, so remember I told you before how XRP is sort of set up in a banker type set way. So this app would be really, really good if you wanted to. The way you would issue your own token isn't the same way you would issue like an ECR20 token, but it's a lot easier than trying to go out and code it yourself. You see what I mean? Okay. So you can make your own token and issue it to yourself. Issuing it to other people is a little bit more complicated, but you can create a token very easily. And the reason why that is like I said, it's set up in such a banking manner to where you almost need an entire payment platform with accounts to do this. because in a system like that, you can already hook up the XRP accounts, the liquidity needed, but from one account to another account, XLM ends up working a lot better because I don't need to. In XRP, I need to have rights to not only the account that's issuing the token, but the account that's accepting the token, where XLM I don't. And the reason why XRP is like that is, like I said, if you were running a banking organization, if I was running the Federal Reserve, and let me show you a good scale version of this. If I was running the Federal Reserve and I wanted to have absolute control over the amount of money being issued in the economy, all you have to do is basically say, okay, Bank of America, Goldman Sachs, Chase, all you banks or whatever, we're going to set you up with these primary crypto address accounts. And then under those accounts, you're going to have all of your user accounts under them. And then under the user accounts, you can issue the tokens under them. So what ends up happening is right off the bat, all the money that's sitting in the banking system would already move over onto a digital blockchain system without them actually having to fit around and try to actually move that money over and be able to get the maximum amount of liquidity in the shortest amount of time. But then what ends up happening is because you have to have the rights to be able to move the token, anybody that wants to make a payment, it'll seem like they're making a normal payment. But in reality, what's happening is you're making a payment. Your bank is basically signing the transaction to go from one bank to another bank. And you basically have to have a bunch of banks sign transactions between each other. Now, why is this important? One, you get the auditing of the IRS is able to audit these in real time. Not only are you able to audit it in real time, but it almost makes it impossible to steal money out of people's accounts. Because like I said, you've got to go through the bank to move money from one account to another account. You see what I mean?
But what I don't get is how do they have 3-second transfer times if all these banks need to check the transactions are okay?
So with how the decentralized network works is, and how it gets and it's actually not even checking to see if these transactions are okay. The overall network's checking for these transactions. But the main reason why it gets and this is actually another crazy tech thing that people don't talk about. The main reason why it gets a 3-second transaction time is the algorithm that runs the consensus on the network is running every 5 seconds. So there's constantly a consensus algorithm between all the nodes that are constantly reading against each other every 5 seconds to get consensus. So what ends up happening is within the 5 seconds, as you make a transaction, you're already mid-consensus for every transaction that's being made. So instead of having proof of stake where people would put up a bunch of stake in the hopes that they operate cooperatively on the network, or proof of work where you have the biggest computer solve the riddle first, there's just a native consensus algorithm on all the XRP nodes, and this would be all the banks that operate. And all the nodes instinctively have a native algorithm that are constantly running every 5 seconds to get consensus with each other. And XLM is also the same way too. But this consensus algorithm is the backbone to the performance of why XRP is able to be so fast. And it's actually a little bit different because XDC is also proof of work. But one of the reasons why, and I don't know if you know this too, but XDC has like a 6-second transaction time speed. And the reason why it gets its transaction speed is not because it has a native algorithm, but because it operates off of a notary system. So what ends up happening is you can choose who you want to sign your transactions based off these notaries. And I'll actually get more into this when I get into Corda. But the notaries can not only be other companies, other nodes on the network, but they could also be regulators, basically notarizing regulatory clear actions that are happening on the network. So the main reason why XRP is operating so quickly is because of the native algorithm. Now, the reason why I say the banks have to operate these accounts, to operate any XRP account, anybody can start up an account. But to operate a account to where you can issue underlying assets, you have to have control and rights to the underlying accounts. This is why I say this is why the banks would use it. They have one account as the bank, all the underlying accounts being the bank accounts, and then they can issue you your currency, your stock, your bond, whatever to you.
Yeah.
And then you end up getting this level of security because if I wanted to hack your account and steal money out of your account, I couldn't do it because
you have to only send it to your account or someone else's registered account.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's the thing. If let's say we both were operating off Chase Bank and I hacked money out of your account and put it into my account. Well, Chase saw everything that just happened. Chase saw everything that just so there's really no way you can hack money out of people's account when it comes to a system like this because of how structurally sound the permissions are when setting up accounts that can issue underlying assets. Now, if you just wanted to make an account,
so for example, Coinbase has permission from XRP to issue all these different wallets.
Yes, actually, yes.
And to open a new wallet, they would need to get permission from XRP and do all the right KYC stuff.
There's two things with that. Yes, that's true. But the first thing is they only really need access or rights to your wallet if they're going to issue you tokens under it. If they're just going to issue you any other random wallet, it's no different than you starting up a ledger, putting in a PIN, and putting up your wallet. Now, the reason why they need permissions to issue those underlying assets is because of how that broader gateway banking structure works. It doesn't work without that. And the reason why I say XLM would be like cash is because they don't need that broader structure. If I had $10 over here and I wanted to issue $10 worth of currency on XLM and then send it to you, I don't need a special permissions to do so. But if I want to run a banking organization on XRP, I do. But that's only for underlying assets. If I just wanted to send you XRP, I could go make an XRP account. I'll send it to your address. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Crap. What was I saying?
So that's why you believe XLM will be used more than XRP for central bank digital currencies.
I think it's going to be
because it's easier for them to.
It's one of those things where, yeah, it's
a lot less hassle.
In a general sense, I don't know who would end up being bigger. It comes down to how you want to look at these markets. Who has a bigger market? I think Stellar is going to be used, like I said, central bank digital currencies is going to be the number one use case for XLM and Stellar. I think XRP is going to be used as a back-end bank settlement token in regards to not only cross-border remittances, but domestic remittances. So when, like I said before at the beginning, where I said,
because everyone's forgetting the domestic remittances market. Everyone's talking about the 50 trillion cross-border, but within each country, there's more trillions, especially like in the US and. Yeah,
it's practically the banking system. Yeah, it's practically the financial system. And that's the thing. Remember, I was telling you how slow it is, and for every $100 that they have that you may have in your bank account, they only have one on demand. Well, this essentially solves that problem, because what ends up happening is instead of having, like you said before, instead of having to worry about being able to. One, if you need to borrow that money, you can get it instantly. You don't have to spend however many days it takes to send the money. But two, when someone asks for their money, you don't have to go, oh, give me a second for me to get this payment that's already on the way to come through. Their payments become instant. So a typical transaction that, let's say you're a bank and you wanted to pass a $50 million transaction, and it took 4 days to do so from all the different things that have to come play to move that money. Well, it would take a couple seconds. If you want to move billions of dollars, it take a couple seconds. So all that clogged up piping in the financial system, from how slow money's moving around from bank to bank, institution to institution, merchant to merchant, merchant to bank, all these different moving parts will now be able to move up freely, quickly, and effectively with XRP, and not only between currencies, but between primarily derivatives. So it's almost like this. I think XRP will be used for digital currencies, but not public digital currencies. Almost like the same way where banks may deal with each other in bonds. They may make a purchase in $1 billion in bonds. People aren't going to buy their house in bonds, but I think they may end up treating the bond market in XRP so they can treat those bonds like cash. Where the regular user, the same way that you're not going to accept your... See, that's the thing, bonds in the banking's eyes is the same as cash, except you get some sort of return on them. That's the thing, though. If you're going to be using it as cash, it doesn't mean it's the same thing as cash. So it's almost like we're going to have this front-end, back-end cash system of the back-end domestic and cross-border remittance cash system to move cash that way, and then the front-end cash system, which is basically going to be like me sending you $5.
So that's why they needed the private ledgers.
Yeah, and that's the thing, too. The private ledgers, and to actually get a crazy thing about that, what I said before when it comes to like the accounts where the bank has their account and they have all those underlying accounts, that's exactly what I mean when it comes to private. Those are private ledgers. Every single one of those. Every time I say that a bank has XRP and they have all those underlying XRP accounts, those are all private ledgers that they're operating off of. And the main portion of the private ledger is they're able to do internal accounting without it being on the public blockchain. Even though they're getting all the utility and all the use case from the public blockchain, they're still able to get that private accounting within their users' accounts on that private ledger. And you're going to see I don't know if all the banks are going to do this. I think you're probably going to see a huge consolidation of the banks, but all the big banks are definitely going to do this.
Okay. So you think there's going to be lots of mergers and acquisitions within the banks?
Oh yeah. There always is. Every crisis, there always is. And it's mostly because one bank's going down, and if this bank goes down, they can't pay this bank, so they end up merging together so they don't lose money. But then this always happens. And it's one of those things, too, where if a bank were to go down, there's accounts that would be totally destroyed. There'd be giant economic impacts with that, too. So you're gonna see mergers and acquisitions up the wazoo. See, here's the thing. The real question is not who's doing the mergers and acquisitions, but what are those banks considered after the mergers and acquisitions? Because you may end up seeing one big acquisition into the Federal Reserve, where there's the Federal Reserve, and then there's all the little commercial banks that really are just the Federal Reserve. They're just operating as
different
brands.
Names.
Yeah, basically. Basically. That's the thing. You got to remember, this is all one network. Do you think each bank needs their own traditional SQL database for payments if they're all operating off XRP? And if they're all using XRP and they're all using the XRP ledger, then what's the difference between Bank of America's banks or databasing and Chase Bank's databasing? There is no difference. They're both using XRP.
Yep.